Hello everybody, and welcome back to the world yet again. Last time we did a interesting project. The super smelter is going to be very useful and also mildly inconvenient, but it will definitely help out with finishing up the apiary, which, spoiler alert, I still have not finished. I just need so many bottles. But as you can see here, I did actually download Zero's world map mod. Still haven't gotten the mini-map because I'm still not entirely convinced it's not cheating, but I don't know. But basically, I can use this to look around to see where stuff is, but it doesn't have the advantage of mini-map being able to sometimes see underground. But it will help me out to see where I've been and see if I've forgotten stuff. So basically, as the world gets bigger and I start building things further out, it'll come in handy to find those things if I somehow manage to lose them. Oh, and also I found a woodland mansion while looking around. So, that's fun. But with the world mapped, we can now move on to what we're doing today. The first thing I work on is getting bone meal for the moss farm, because this episode is going to involve a lot of smoothing out of the landscape, and I'm trying to make it look a little less bad, especially since after the apiary got built. It's sort of just floating, so there's a lot of area that I want to fix the terrain, and a lot of that is going to be done today. Of course, there will be more work to be done after this, because, frankly, terraining takes a lot of time, or terraforming, so it's gonna be sort of a project that I'm gonna have to work on for a long time, but this is sort of a good jump start, and then I'll try and work on the rest of it more in the background so that it isn't so predominant. But with a bunch of moss at hand, I can then just run down and start working on terrain. And the main section of terrain I'm starting with is this hill over here, including the area like around the super smelter where there's just sort of a cube, because that looks kind of ugly. And yeah, this area ended up being a little bit of a nightmare because it's just really close to the river and the road. And for those of you who looked at that honeycomb tube I made in the last episode and were like, I really hope that gets gone as soon as possible, don't worry, I'm already hiding it, because wow, it did not look great, did it? But now I'm basically putting that part into a hill so that it's hidden, but it isn't, you know, weird honeycomb tube. Unfortunately, I did kind of forget to turn on replay mod, so a lot of this is going to be stuck in first person, but I do get some replay mod footage later, because frankly, terraforming is really hard to show in first person for me, because just placing a lot of stuff and trying to make it look smooth. This area down by the river, by the super smelter, ends up pretty much turning into a steep hill, which is not too bad, but it is not my favored terrain. But as it went further over to the left, it got even steeper and steeper, which scared me a bit because steep terrain is spooky, but it did end up turning out pretty good, I think. But after a while of terraforming, I decided I wanted to build a big circle. So I headed out to the wool farm and got a ton of wool. Now, you might be saying, wow, that kinda came out of nowhere and seems to have no bearing on the current project, and you'd kinda be right, but basically, I wanted to build a circle to sort of mark out, like, for lack of a better term, this district of the world. An area where I want to build this main, like, area up before I start spreading out too far into bigger, weirder projects. Of course, I'll still be building things out further away, but I want to have the main focus be within this circle. So, with that, let's build a big circle real quick. Yeah, put a slight damper on that whole time lapse by messing up the last quarter of the circle, but don't worry, I fixed it, and you can still see the recording, but this is a different replay file for some reason, and I don't feel like going back and doing this one too, because it was kinda easy, so just boom, it's fixed now. And yeah, it's about 1,000 blocks in diameter, if I remember correctly, so, you know, it's not tiny. And after that, I went into my villager area and traded sticks. Why? Because I wanted emeralds. And with that, I bought more redstone dust, because what else am I gonna do with emeralds? And despite that also coming out of nowhere, I promise this one actually definitely has a good reason for existing. That being, I finally decided that this just random chests was not great for the moss farm, so I decided to throw an item sorter under it. So now I have a whole set of chests for each different drop that the moss will create, which is convenient. And now I put a bunch of bone meal in here because, you know, kinda pointless to have a moss sorting system if you don't have any moss. And also, I need a lot more moss for that whole terraforming thing that I'm doing this episode. I got distracted with a circle, but that's besides the point. And since the terraforming is going that general direction, I finally decided that I would fully murder this old bone meal farm. Because frankly, I've been stealing redstone components from it for a while, so, you know, might as well. I then, of course, terraformed the area where it once stood, so that there will be no evidence of its existence. I then do some roadside terraforming. I then managed to activate my one singular brain cell that's still somehow staying alive in there, and turned on the replay mod. So, yay, replay footage, let's go. Unfortunately, running out of moss again is a thing that is happening a lot. So back to the composter to just throw a whole shulker box of potatoes in it, because that will help, at least a little bit. I also run over to the nether tree farm to collect all of the vegetation and wart blocks, because those can be turned into an actually pretty large amount of bone meal. And after an extensive amount of composting, I now have a large amount of bone meal, which I can use to get a lot of moss, which means I can continue terraforming. Oh boy. And almost all of it, if not all of it, is going straight under the apiary because, like I said, it's kinda been built in the air. So, yeah. Lots of moss going down here. Because I'm not making hollow ground. It's solid. Besides for the super smelter, but we don't talk about that one because it has something useful in it, I promise. It's a good excuse. And after an unpleasant amount of moss placing, I did eventually finish the column of moss underneath the apiary, which means it's no longer floating, but it does look really bad. So that's probably next on the list of things to fix. So the first part of that I'm going to be working on is this little valley that's between the apiary and the buildings of the city. It's not massive, but it's gonna take a good chunk of moss, as with everything I've done today. And after just a little bit of time, we now have smooth. Next was this little bump in the road. And now it is smooth hill, as opposed to jarringly not smooth hill. And now it's going downhill, literally. Because, yeah, we're finally figuring out what the terrain is doing in this section leading down to where the villagers are. Because, well, I'd have to do it eventually. And this seemed like as good a time as any. And believe it or not, this is going to be a return of the steep hill, because steep hill is just effective, and I didn't have any better ideas. And even though the whole point of this project is to make the land look a lot prettier, and in the end, I'm definitely going to be glad I did it, because it does make the land look a lot less garbage, this is my personal hellscape at the current moment in time, because frankly, making all of the hills solid made this a lot harder than it should have been, because it's just a lot of moss. At the very least though, I can be lucky that moss exists, because doing this, making it solid with anything but moss, like for example, if I used dirt for this, that would be an actual nightmare, so thank moss, I guess. Part of me just kinda wanted to level out this area at where the apiary stood, but I don't really want too much straight up flat land, because unless I'm specifically going for a very flat area, I just think that would stand out in a weird way. But also, that would be a lot of moss. So much moss. But actually, even worse than that, I'd have to figure out what I would do with all of those buildings that would therefore be underground, but luckily, I decided not to do that and just continue with steep hill, my favorite. I also marked out some new roads because I was bored, and that will continue up in that direction further, but currently don't know what I'm putting up there. As per usual, I just got sick of terraforming and wanted to slap down a couple more roads, because why not? But anyway, with that, I think I'm gonna be logging off for today. I know today wasn't exactly the most thrilling or action-packed episode, but I think that this is something that I needed to do anyway, so I think that this is a good idea to just get a head start on it, and then I'll try and work on it more in the background in the future. The moss is luckily easy to get, so it's not gonna have to be something that's super in your face, so that's always nice. Despite that, however, I will probably at some point be making a bigger and better bone meal farm that's once again piston based, but a lot bigger. I'm not 100% confident in what I'm doing next episode, since I don't really know where to go from here, but I will be trying my best to get an episode out next Sunday at the normal time, so hopefully you can look forward to that and I won't delay. And of course, if you have any ideas for what I should do next episode, or just in the future in general, feel free to leave something in the comments for what I could do, because there's a lot of things I can do in this world, and sometimes just a little bit of inspiration can go a long way. So if you have any ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll be looking there for some ideas. But anyway, like I said, that should be all for today. I hope to see you soon, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will be going now, so bye-bye.